Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Nedarim Daf Ayin Beis number 72. We're going to talk about a couple different topics today. If there's Gerushin, is it like Shtika or like Hakama? Talk about the practice of Talmidei Chachamim to be made fair the Nedarim of their daughters and their husbands even before they make the Nedarim. Talk about the different ways that it works for a father versus a husband. Um, Pretty fundamental difference the Gemara seems to make clear. I'll explain that more. And Ian with Van Seal. Let's start Ayin Aleph on base, the two dots. If she's nisarsta, she's engaged, and they get divorced. It's a broken engagement. So, and the husband heard about it, right? They get divorced. Is it like shtika? Is it like he's silent? Okay, akamadami, or do we assume that he was like making the nether because he divorces her, so he's pretty angry at her. So it's like, even though he didn't actually affirm the nether, it's like he affirmed the nether, and once he affirms the nether, so there's no way of it being undone because he divorced her, so he lost the power. L'may nafkamina, the Gemara says, he heard about it, the husband, and he divorced her in the Aris during Eris, and then they reconciled, and the reconciliation happened during that day. He got re-engaged to her that day, so that was within the 24-hour period. Yeah, Mark, it's like he's just silent, right? Mati Meferla, he, or it happens to be him, but the same halacha would apply if she got engaged to a different person, right? Like the Mishnah says. So then you can make for love. However, if it's like he affirmed the nether, lo mati made for love, right? The reason he can't be made for the nether is because we pass on like Beis Hillel, right? That the way that a husband and a father are made for the nedarim is basically miklish kolish. They do it with shutvas. I explained yesterday. They do it together. It's a joint project. So therefore, once he's making the nether, even though he goes ahead and remarries her, he can't even be shown nakama because once he started the process over here in the first Arison, and then he got divorced, right? That inevitably it was started and it's halfway done, and you can't go back to that ever again, and therefore there's no way to be made for it. Tashma, Lauren Ayin Beis on Aleph on top says, when do we say that the husband dies, the father gets exclusive rights to make for the nether? The husband didn't hear about it, the Oris didn't hear about it. Or he heard about it and he was made for the nether. Or he heard about it and was silent, and he died on that day without doing anything. Right, in all these three cases, we assume that Nisrok and Rosh Hashanah. Now, it's not, as we mentioned before, this actually is a machlokes between Beit Shammai. So this brisa happens to reflect the opinion of Beit Shammai, because anytime the husband hears about it, and certainly if he revokes the nether, we don't assume Nisrok and Rosh Hashanah. Only according to Beit Shammai do we say Nisrok and Rosh Hashanah because of Megas Gaius. The only time Beis Hillel agrees Nisrok and Rosh Hashanah is if he didn't hear about it, the husband. So it's just important to note this price is according to Beis Shammai. Does that mean we hold like Beis Shammai? Not conclusively. It seems to be a hold like Mikulash Kalish, like Beis Hillel, but it's important to note how to understand this price. If you say that getting divorced, the fourth case, is like being silent, listening Nami Oshama Vigirish, right? He heard and he divorced her, and that's like Shtika Damya, right? I mean, according to Beis Shammai, that we say Megas Gaga, there should be no struggling Shas La'ab. From the fact that it didn't include this case, Shamina Gerushin got Kamadami. Therefore, it's a proof that Gerushin is like you're being making the nether. There's no way of getting back. Ema Seifa, the Gemara says, say at the end of the price, if Alim Shama Vikiyim, let's say the husband heard about it, he's a Mekan nether, oh Shama Vishasa, or he heard about it, Umeis Biyom Shala Acharav, he died after 24 hours, right? Waiting 24 hours is the equivalent of Hakama. So therefore, you can't be made from the nether, even according to Beis Shammai. If we say Gerushin is like you're making the nether, listivim Shama Vigirish, right? Why doesn't he say also a case? We're talking about cases of where it's like the husband was making the nether, in which cases you can't say instruction of Shos Lav. So, listening now, Shama Vigirish, he heard and he divorced her. Ella midlok sanihach. In fact, it doesn't include that case. Shamana gerushin gishtika dami. It must be gerushin is like being silent. And we would say instruction shows lav. Ella mahalek ella mashram. From this brisa, right? The beginning seems to imply that it's like hakama, and the seva seems to imply that it's like shtika. You can't. So therefore, you can't bring a proof in this brisa. Yeresha dafka. If really the correct version, the most precise version is the resha, the beginning, right? And it doesn't include gerushin. So therefore, gerushin is like hakama, and it's seifa mishum resha. Therefore, it doesn't include it in the seifa. Yesafi seifa dafka. And if really the seifa is specific, is precise, and really gerushin is kishtika, nasiv resha mishum seifa. The reason it didn't mention the resha is because it didn't mention it in the seifa. Tashma nadrav hiarus. The Gemara hasn't given an answer one way or the other. Tashma nadrav hiarusa. She takes a neder, and she's not a rusa. And this garshin is actually baba yom. This is the Mishnah we had earlier on Daf It Nedarim. She was megureshes and got re-engaged during that day. I feel the mea, even 100 people, she got divorced and re-engaged to Avio Bailacham Avir in the Real. That day, her father and the last Aras are made for the Nedarim together. It must be, it's a proof in this Mishnah, that Gerushin is like being silent. If it's like Gerushin, he divorced her, he's angry, it's like he affirmed the Neder. Be Matzi made for Aras Achron. Like we mentioned, right, it has to be done jointly with the father and the husband. He's making the nether. You can no longer, right? This is even according to Beis Hillel, reading, even according to Beit Shammai. Once the one Arus was making the nether, right? He already started the process already, so you can't have the Arus Achron take his place because the Arus Rishon was making the nether. Must be. Mi matzi made for aras achron nidri the okim aras rishon. Right, one person can be shown on his hakama, but another person can't be shown on his hakama. Whereas hakama yaskin mashal shama aras rishon. That Mishnah on Afayin Aleph was talking about where he didn't hear about it. Ihachi, and that's why if he would have heard about it, right? Maybe I would tell you that shtika, that gerushin is hakama. He didn't hear about it, and that's why the aras achron came made for ihachi ma'ir boba yom. Why does the Mishnah specify that she got re-engaged during that day, within the 24-hour period? Nami, even after 100 days, right? Doesn't make it there. She took the nether. 100 days later, she gets re-engaged to the second person. So her father and the Aras Achron, they didn't hear the nether yet. They didn't hear the nether, so the process didn't start. So therefore, the Aras Achron and the father can make for the nether together. So the Gemara answers, it's talking about, the Mishnah is talking about a specific case where the artist didn't hear about it. So therefore he didn't start the process, but the father did hear about it. So therefore it has to be done in a 24-hour period. However, the artist Achron could join in because the artist Rishon didn't even hear about it, so the process didn't even start. And therefore, since the process started, the father heard about it. So therefore you only have 24 hours, and they have to be made for together within 24 hours. Tashma, try to answer this question. Nadro Boba Yom. She took a neder on that day. He divorced her and he's Maxer Boyom. And Yachal Lahafer. He can't be made for Shramina Gerushin Kamadam. It must be a clear proof from this brisa. Right? It's very clear from this brisa that it's like Hakama. Because if it's like Shtika, so once he gets re-engaged to her, right? So therefore he could, if it's just shtika, he can be made for the other. Here we're talking about a married woman, not an arusa, not an engaged woman, a married woman. The reason that he can't be made for the Nedarim is not because gerushin is kamadami. Right? There's a halacha, as opposed to the aris and the father, they can be made for. The father is never bekodman. But the Arus could be made for Nedarim she made before she got engaged. But a husband can't be. We're going to learn this later on, the source for this. But a husband can't be made for Nedarim that she made before they got married. And that's why, right, Girsha is talking about she was married and he divorced her from marriage. And then she got remarried. So therefore, she got remarried to him. It doesn't matter because the Neder was before the second marriage. Ain't a Baal Mayfair, but Kodman. Now the marriage that they're in, she made the Neder before that. And therefore the Baal has no Rishus to Mayfair. The Gemara does not give an answer. Shtika dami al kakan dami, and therefore I would assume it's a suffix d'oraisa l'chumra, and we would assume l'chumra and Nedarim nether stays. You can't be made for the nether, but you always have the option of going to a base and being makir the nether. So that would be the correct way to get rid of the nether. Ayin base on base on the top. Mishnah derech tamid achamim achalo haisa bito yotze me'etzlo. The way the tamid achamim, meaning people that were very medactic, very scrupulous in mitzvos. Achalo haisa bito yotze me'etzlo. Right when his daughter was about to engage, he would say, get married. She's about to get married. Omer la kol nedarim shenadarta b'sal basi. Any nedarim that you made in my house, whether it was before the erusin or during the erusin, harei and mufarin. I made for them now, even though seemingly he doesn't know about them. So, and similarly, the husband, right, the aris, before he actually marries her, Omer la kol nedarim shenadarta, right, because the baal we know can't be made for once. If she made another before they got married, and now they're married, he can't be made for bekodman. So he says a statement that I'm being made for the nedarim, even though he doesn't know what nedarim she made. As we learned before, the baal can't be made for the nedarim once she goes into rishus of the husband. Also, the father can't be made for because it's no longer in his rishus. The Gemara says, Ram Brachama asked the following question: Baal ma'oshi offer below shmiya. A husband, right, can be made for a neder without hearing it, right? The pasuk says he hears about the neder, he's made for it. He knows what the neder is, he's made for it. Could a husband do that without hearing about it? V'shama isha dafka. The pasuk says her husband hears about it. It's specific. It's medukdak. It's very exact. The Torah meant to say he really has to hear about it. Olav dafka, or just normally he hears about it, he's made for it. But even technically, if he didn't hear about it, he could be made for it without hearing about it. Olav dafku. I'm a Rava Tashma. Rava tries to prove from our Mishnah. Tashma. There are tamid ochavim mashlo yatzos bitam yetzlo. Omer la. Chol darm shendartim zok beisi yarein mufarin. The father says to his daughter, all the nedarim that you made before you came into my house are mufarim, halo shamla, right? He didn't hear about certain nedarim. He's saying all the nedarim that you made, that I'm not aware of. If he was aware of them, he should have been made for them. He has 24 hours to be made for them. But if he didn't hear about them, so he's made for it. Halo shamla. So you see, you could be made for nedarim from the father. Bring a proof. The question was about the husband, but we're going to show him proof from the father, from the Reish of the Mishnah. He didn't hear about it. The Gemara asks, "L'chi shama hu the mefer." No, he makes a statement, right? Before you get married, any nedarim that I don't know about are made for. But he really only has the ability to make for the nedarim if she makes a statement and then she comes to the father and says, "Oh yeah, I made this and this neder." Because once he makes a statement, it's gonna cause her to reveal to him. So when he hears about it, it's really just to get her to reveal the nedarim, and then when he hears about it, he's made for them. If he didn't hear about it, why is he saying this? Right? Talmidei Chachamim want to be specific. They want to make sure that they take care of their responsibilities, and this would prompt her by saying this statement. It would prompt her to reveal the nedarim to her, and he's going to be made for them. Tashma. Someone's an Amar. He doesn't care so much. Tashma miseifa. Just go to the base and mother. Tashma miseifa. V'chein abal. Achlo tkanas l'shus homer la hachanami homer la. The Sefer Mishnah, the husband says, that the Aris says, before you come into my house, I made for a nedarim. So the Gemara Hachanami here in the Sefer, the Amar La L'chi Shamana. He says to her, when I hear about it, I'm being made for. Now, this language is different than what we said by the father. The father says, L'chi Shamahu the Mefer. When he hears about it, he's made for. Here it says, the husband says, the Amar La L'chi Shamana. He says something. When I hear about it, it's mufar. It's mufar when? Not that I'm made for it when I hear about it. It's mufar now when I hear about it. Tonight when I hear about it. So it's a little different by the husband. We're going to discuss why it is that the husband has the ability to be made for it. And it's not a problem. And the reason this is helpful is because a Baal, a husband, can be made for a Bekodman. But if he's an Arus, and he says, all the nedarim that you made until now, right, when I hear about them, right, I'll be made for them. So even though she only reveals it to him after they got married, because he made the statement during Erusin, so therefore his hafara is effective, because the Maisa hafara happened during the Erusin. The Tanai that he heard about it only happened during the marriage. That's okay. We'll discuss why by a husband you're allowed to do this type of Tanai. By the father, specifically he has to say, it was just like the whole reason behind the statement, it's a prompter to say the Dharm. So he actively can block it, but he has no ability to make this Tanai and say, I'm being made for it now on condition when I hear about it. Why did the Gemara switch by the husband and by the father? We'll talk about that in Ian Ben Sion. Tashma. He's married to a woman. He says he's going on a road trip. He's going to a different country, business in Dubai. He says, until all the Nedarim you make until I come back, Harein Kayamit, Lomer Klum. Even though he's not going to hear about it. I'm a Kayim all your Nedarim. He's angry at her. I'm going to Dubai. I'm going to have fun in Dubai. So I'm a Kayim all your Nedarim. Doesn't Lomer Klum. You can't do that. Right? And Mufarid. He says all their Mufarid. Rabbi Lezer Omer Mufar. Lezer says you can do it. So according to Lezer, you can do it. The Chacham say you can't. But according to Lezer, you see you can do it. But Shama. He didn't hear about it. He's saying whatever Nedarim you're going to make, they're Mufar. No, when I come back and I hear about them, so then they're Mufar retroactively. They're Mufar retroactively from when I made the statement. But I'm going to leave Minhashta. Why did he, when he comes back, he asks his wife, did you make an Nedarim? She tells him. Made for them now. Made for them then. Kasavar Dilma Matrina Shaita. Maybe he'll be very busy, preoccupied. He went to Dubai for business, ostensibly. So he comes back. He's still working on the business deal. He only has 24 hours to make for once a year. So he's not going to be able to focus, and he won't be made for. That's why he says this Tanai that L'chisha Mana, when I hear, I don't think it works retroactively as before. I think when I hear the Tanai happens, then they're Mufar when he hears about it. Tashma, we still haven't given an answer. Omer Apotropos, right? He's not around his house. He didn't go to Dubai. He's just very busy. He doesn't have time to deal with his wife. So he says to the person in charge of his house, Yosef, in charge of Apotropos on his house, I'm going to a different city, or I'm going to my work. Hefer, be made for her Nedarim. He gives a shliach, makes up a shliach. V'haferla. And the Apotropos went ahead and he blocked the Nedarim. Yachal Yomufarin. You might think that it works. Talmud Lomar, Isha Yikimenu, Isha Yiferenu. The husband is solely in charge of being Mekayim Neder or being made for Neder Rabbi Yosha. According to Rabbi Yosha, that's like Pasuk says. Amal Rabbi Yonasan. Yonasan says to him, Masiyam B'chol Torah Kula Shluchos Shalom Kamosa. We know Shlichus works, unless the Torah says it doesn't work. Shlichus normally works. I feel Rabbi Yosha Lo Kalmar. Rabbi Yosha really agrees Shlichus does work over here. I'll mention the Geras Akasav Isha Yikimenu, Isha Yiferenu. It specifically says over here that the husband has to be the one to Mekayim Neder, made for the Neder. Everyone agrees, technically, right? There is a concept of Shluchos Shalom Kamoso that the Apotropos can make for the Nedarim. V'halo Shemiele, right? Everyone agrees that the husband has to hear it, right? He's the one in charge of Mefer. He can appoint the Apotropos perhaps to be Mefer or Mekayim Nedarim, but he can't appoint him to hear the Nedarim. Why that's true, maybe we'll have to discuss it during time, but he can't do that. The husband is away. He's on business. He didn't hear about it. So my answer is, top line, Gilman and Olive, Hakanami, the Amar, Lei L'chisha Mana, Mayfair, law. He says to the Apotropos, when I come back and hear about the Nedarim, you go and be Mayfair. L'chisha Ma Leifer law. Who? Why does he have to appoint an Apotropos to do it, right? Let him. He's going to hear about it. He has to hear about it, and then he'll be Mayfair. So far, when he comes back, Dilma Matridna. Again, he's very occupied with his business. When he comes back, he won't be able to focus, and 24 hours will pass, and he won't be able to the Neder. Therefore, he says, "Yeah, I'll come back. He'll tell me everything that went on. I want my wife getting upset that I went away for business, and she's really upset, and she hates me, and I always leave her. And you go up at Apotropos, go and Mayfair the Nedarim." So according to Rabbi Yonasan, it works. That's the sort of situation in the Gemara. That is the conclusion of today's share. Tomorrow we'll talk about a cheresh, ma'osh yafar leishto. If you're deaf, talk about the idea of shmiya. We haven't talked about that so much. We mentioned over here, very interesting halacha that the Apotropos could possibly work to be Mayfair and Mekayim Nedarim, but the husband is the one who has to hear it. You can't make a shlichus on the shmiya. I'll talk about that, why you can't do that. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion when I talk about the different role that the father plays as the husband plays. We talked about yesterday about the shvutfus of Beis Hillel, of the father and the Arus being made for together jointly. It's a very vulnerable position for the girl in Aram Urasa, so therefore she needs extra joint protection to be made for Nadarim. Now we're going to talk about the husband when he's fully married. That's really what the question in the Gemara is on Ayin Beis Amud Beis, right? Can the husband be made for her Nedarim without hearing about it? We'll talk about the difference the Gemara notes between the father and the husband. The husband actually has the ability to make a stipulation tonight. The father doesn't. We'll discuss the reason for that in Yod Ben Sion coming up next.